So, morning Tracy, morning Tanya. Do you know, I don't think I can think of a better way of starting the day than having a chat with you two. So thank you very much for coming. So, we know, don't we, that one of the things that we're all really passionate about is that the impact that social care can make in the lives of people we support. So we're going to be having a bit of a chat about that. I can't believe there's anyone in Brandon Trust that doesn't know who you are, but in a minute I'm going to get you to introduce yourselves to people. But first I'm just going to say hello to everybody else. Welcome to In Conversation With. And this is a bit of a new thing. We're giving it a try in Brandon Trust. And really it's an opportunity for us to celebrate the wonderful and diverse range of people, colleagues, teams that make up this amazing community. Now, one of the things that we really want to explore is storytelling. How can we tell stories about the difference that our work makes? How can we tell stories about the fantastic achievements of people we support? How can we tell stories about the careers that people have in social care and in Brandon Trust? And importantly, how can we recognise that really it's only together we can make a difference. Only together can we work towards that shared vision that we've got of a world and a future where people of all abilities truly belong. So that's what In Conversation is all about. If you've got a story that you'd like to share, please let us know, and hopefully we can showcase your story as part of a future conversation. But today's conversation is about a lifelong career in social care. And that is why I'm going to get both Tracy and Tanya to introduce themselves. So Tracy, should we start with you?
Okay.
Tell people who you are, what your role is, and a bit about your background in Brandon Trust.
Okay, so my role for Brandon is Chief Business Enterprise and Partnerships Officer. So I'm fortunate enough to have 3 fantastic teams working with me. That's our biz dev team, and they look after all of our growth in diversification. They make sure that we pay a lot of attention to what we call our whole life approach, and they also make sure that we're taking advantage of opportunity in the marketplace by listening to people we support and their families. In addition, I'm fortunate enough to work with our enterprise and retail services. So we've got a number of fantastic skills, employment and commercial projects that offer a real opportunity for you to, if you're somebody with a learning disability, experience what the world of work is and give back to communities. So it's the broader offer, I guess, in terms of impact. And our retail offer is around our sustainable fashion. So that's all things people in planet. And lastly, our comms, marketing and fundraising team. So that's making sure that everybody knows who Brandon is, and that's really important to me. I haven't been part of Brandon for such a long time. But also making sure that people feel that sense of belonging that comes with being part of such a fantastic charity like Brandon. And I've been part of Brandon since it started. I'm not as old as that makes me sound. I was fortunate enough to be tupied in at the very beginning with a small group of really passionate people who really cared about the future for people with a learning disability, and have had a really broad and diverse career as a result of that. So I like to think that Brandon gave me as much opportunity as I've been able to support people with learning disabilities to have over the 30-something years.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So great to hear, Tracy. And I think, yes, Brandon is a charity, but I think it's also a community. And I think we want people to feel that sense of connection and belonging, and that their work really makes a difference and really makes an impact.
I hope so.
And I think your story is a great way of showing people how that can be realised. So we'll hear more about your story in a minute. But Tam, just introduce yourself. Tell people who you are and what your current role is.
So, hi, I'm Tanya. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Brandon Trust, as well as the Deputy CEO. Chief Operating Officer means that I oversee operations in the quality that they provide for the people that we support to ensure that their needs and aspirations are met. I also oversee quality and I oversee health and safety for the organisation as well. It's not just about overseeing it, it's about working with, and I think a key part of our roles as executive leaders within the organisation is about making sure that we're not just here 30 years ago, but we're here in the next 30 years. So I'd say that my job is an awful lot about working alongside people to make sure that we're still here in 30 years' time.
That's great. So one of the questions I'd like to explore with you both is, when you first started in social care, what was it that sort of motivated you or interested you in a career in social care?
Do you want me to take it up first? Yeah?
Go for it.
Okay. So my very first role in social care was as a residential support worker. So I was employed to work with a group of men who at that time were still living in a long stay hospital, and at the start of my career all of the long stay hospitals were still open in Bristol, and I wasn't sure that it was going to be for me. I'd never tried it. I'd only ever had one friend that had any form of disability. So I went to college with somebody with cerebral palsy and we became great friends. Hadn't really thought about learning disability as a career. And within a couple of days of meeting the men that I was going to be supporting to move out of the long stay hospital into their own homes, I was hooked. And I think it was about people for me, about people and courage and curiosity. And I think the very first day that I started sometimes still feels like the same day that I'm coming to work 30 odd years later, because the same values for me are the reason that I'm still with Brandon and I'm excited about the future. So it was more what's the expression, is not a career, is a vocation. And it felt like that from the beginning.
That's so encouraging to hear. And interestingly, when we were starting this idea about just having conversations about people's stories in Brandon Trust, one of the things that I wanted to really understand is people's careers, but also their contributions, and that you can make a contribution to our work whatever role you're in Brandon Trust. So Tanya, I know that over the 30 years that you've been working for Brandon, you've had a whole number of very different roles.
I have.
Give us a bit of a flavour of what some of those roles have been.
So like Tracy, I first started off as a support worker, and it was in a long stay institution, and I supported a group of ladies to move out into a community home, which Brandon still support today. Actually, not the people, but Brandon still support the home today. And for me, that was the greatest job in the world. So my sister, 10 years older than me, was a learning disability nurse. And that's why I'd always been interested in it, because my sister and I were really close and still are close today. And so it was really good to get out there and to see what she was doing. And it was just a natural path for me to follow. Supporting people to move from a long stay institution into their own home within the community was fantastic, and fantastic for me as well. So it almost felt quite selfish, because I was building these relationships with these people, and they gave me so much in my life. It was unbelievable of working alongside them and seeing how they really could become part of a community, rub off on the community and integrate into the community. It was just phenomenal. From that, I've done various jobs, but all of them at the heart of trying to make a difference. As a support worker, I was making a difference on a day in, day out, on an individual one-to-one basis with people being supported. And then my career then progressed into line management, so I became a team leader. I was the first registered locality manager for Brandon that wasn't a nurse manager. And we need both, right? We need people with nursing qualification and without it. And I guess what kept me going, and I guess what keeps me going today within Brandon Trust, is that as long as you're making a difference, So maybe now not on an individual level I'm not making a difference, but I'm making now a difference on a bigger level now for Brandon Trust and people being supported. That's what it was about. So I think when Tracy talked about vocation earlier, I get as much back from it as I probably enable and give people we support.
Yeah, and that sense of vocation is just as strong now as it was for you 30 years ago.
Totally. If I couldn't make a difference, I wouldn't still be at Brandon Trust. Yeah. It's what secures me to Brandon. It's what roots me to Brandon Trust. I think that's what our culture's about.
Yeah.
Making a difference for people.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, in that 30 years, I know the changes that you two will have seen in social care. I mean, you've both spoken actually about those, long stay institutions. I think we're all hugely relieved that things have changed very significantly. But can you just think of one change that you would say that was a real milestone in our journey, not just maybe in Brandon, but more broadly in how we support people with a learning disability, how we enable them to live the life that they choose?
I think for me, the biggest part for social care and for people supported is the Mental Capacity Act.
Yeah.
So when the Mental Capacity Act came out, Brandon, right from when I joined, was always about enabling people to be independent, enabling people to live the lives they chose. But barriers were around that, and when the Mental Capacity Act come out that put people right at the centre of making their own choices and their own decisions, or enabling us to do that within their best interest, it was phenomenal for me, phenomenal for the people we supported. It cemented really Human Rights Act, and it really cemented where we should be going. So I think if I take that into a broader context of today, we still strive all the time to enable people to be independent and to see where people can live the lives they're choosing. So I think that would be it for me.
Yeah, along the same lines, I think for me it was about starting to see the power shift in respect to the people that we support, and because for a lot of the people originally that we were supporting, they would have had little to no control about their future and their future direction of support. And I think you're right, Tam, with the Mental Capacity Act, all of a sudden there was some legislation that gave people some teeth, I think, and it started to really shift the mindset of people providing support, not just us as charities, but all providers of support, around placing people at the very centre of their lives, really. And I think for us as an organisation, we've really matured in respect of how we've worked alongside people with lived experience to be a much more inclusive provider, and sometimes that's not the easiest to travel, and sometimes we've not always got that right, and we've had to take a step back and we've had to stop and think and listen to people supported in their families. But I think one of the beautiful things about the organisation is that we've developed it together with people supported, and often if we go out now and visit services, we're reintroduced to people that we might well have met originally in a hospital. Fewer now, obviously, because we've all got older. But I think for me, it's not just about the younger people that are coming into our organisation. It's about seeing people that have travelled a very difficult journey from the hospital right the way through to living in their own home now, and still having the courage and the conviction of being able to want to shape services for people in the future. I think it drives us, doesn't it?
That's right. I think who would have known 30 years ago that something like supported living would have been where people were going to become tenants in their own homes and have the same rights as you and I had. I mean, 30 years ago, we were supporting people to move out into community houses, but we were still, as staff, in control what those environments looked like, where people were living, and nowadays that's completely changed. So where's it going to be in the next 30
well,
years?
I've got a great story. On Saturday, I was literally sat in my local high street in Newquay in Cornwall, and I was having a drink with some friends, and two of the people that we support walked past, and I said hi, and I said, where? They said, oh, well, we've come into town. They lived outside of Newquay. They'd hired a B&B and they were going clubbing in Sailors till 4 in the morning. I was like, oh, my days of clubbing till 4 in the morning is over. But it was a really natural interaction for my friends too. And it was great to see young people that we support really living their best lives and living the life that they choose. And that was stuff they didn't have support workers with them. We'd enabled those young men to be independent to the point where they use our support when they need us and they don't have support when they don't. And I sat down and reflected for a while, and I thought, because I was conscious of the fact we were going to have a chat today, and I was thinking that sort of sums up really my career with Brandon Trust. From the day that I walked through a hospital gate to sitting in my high street and seeing two young men going, we've just hired a B&B because we can't be bothered going tonight, we're going to have a late night in Sailors, which was amazing.
And doesn't that give more to the community though?
Absolutely.
So instead of segregated hospitals, where it was a myth of who was behind the big walls, the gifts now that people give us when we're all in the community together.
Yeah, it's a much richer community, I think. Yeah. We've all benefited from the fact that we've got, and we're not there yet, but that we're working towards much more inclusive, I think, communities. Yeah.
So let's just pick up that theme.
Okay.
Because we're not there yet. We know we're not there.
Yeah.
And you've just said we're all getting older, which is equally true. And a really lovely friend of mine said to me, she said, Helen, when you're approaching the end of your career, it's the time to speed up, not slow down.
Yeah.
So we're all going to speed up, not slow down. What does that look like, do we think? What are the changes that we want to try and facilitate, enable next, that could really be that next big step towards, our vision? Our vision is that world where people of all abilities truly belong. What needs to happen next, do we think?
I think there are some tried and tested things that we agree as an organisation that for us is about people with lived experience being front and centre in terms of direction their own futures. I think there are very common aspirations for all young people and all older people, in that you want to live in your own home as independently as you can for as long as you can. You want to be part of your local community. If you want to work, you want to be able to get a job, you want to get your first home, you want to be in love. All of that stuff. And I hope for us as an organisation, we're shaped by the voice of people with learning disabilities over the next whatever's left of my career. And I think what we're trying really hard to do, I think, as an organisation, is devolve as much of our power as we can, as close to the people that we support as we can, and those people that are directly affecting people's lives on a day-to-day basis. I want people to feel free. If you work for us, if you're supported by us, if you're a donor, it's about creating that sense of freedom, I think, so that together, like Tan said, we really can make a difference. I'm certainly not going to slow down.
We believe you, Tracy.
I'm on it with you. I think for me, exactly what Tracy's just said. For me, it's to become invisible. So I don't want to be front and centre of Brandon Trust. I want the people supported to be front and centre of Brandon Trust. And already we're breaking down those walls again in relation to, Helen, when you get up and speak, it's never alone, is it? It's with the people we're supporting. So it's about that for me, and keeping on connecting, keeping on listening to people we're supporting. Because why should their aspirations and dreams change? Why shouldn't they keep going in what they want to do? And we just need to be there and enable that to happen, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the fact that probably some of the people that we were supporting in hospitals would have been recipients of treatment, and now the people that we support are training clinicians.
it's so exciting, isn't it? Yeah.
What a journey,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for people about saying, you know, if I walk through your door, this is what the type of care and support and public health services that I'd expect, and you should know how to do that well.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly exciting, and just when you think people have got you to a place where you think, oh, we've almost nailed it, they push again, you know. So and that's a bit like when we were support workers. You're only limited by the imagination of the people that you support. You know, in terms of what your job is. It's a fantastic free job being a support worker. Is you get to do
job.
oh my god,
Any
you get
job
to do
within Brandon, I'd say, Trace. I mean,
but especially entry jobs, you know, if you don't know about social care and stuff, it's literally, you can come into Brandon Trust and one day you can be surfing, the next day you can be rock climbing, the next day you could be shopping, you know, and there are very few occupations nowadays, I think, that can capture your imagination and passion like that, because it's about people.
And I think what I'm hearing from both of you, one of the take-home messages from this conversation is that there are no limits. There are no limits for the people we support. There are no limits for our colleagues. So if you come and join us and become part of the Brandon team, people can genuinely progress all the way from being a support worker to being an executive leader. And I think everybody's contribution counts. We couldn't do the work that we do without
100%.
everybody doing their role in their team. And together we can make that difference.
Because we all make a difference.
We do.
Regardless of the role in Brandon. You all make a difference. We all make a difference.
So I hope people are inspired by that and
I hope
encouraged.
so.
And I hope people reach out, because I know that you'd be really happy to chat to people. If people want to chat about their role, their career, their learning, their development, I know you'd be really happy to chat to people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for being in conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Tanya and Tracy. Thank you.